Welcome, everybody. I see some familiar names and faces coming in. We're just gonna wait for some more people to join before we get started, but we've got Carley here. So exciting. We're just
Hi,
like liter
everyone.
we're like literally just sitting here talking about how excited we are and about how perfectly aligned this is. Yay! Hi, Lisa. Hi, Marianne. Hi, Steph. It's awesome. We're just waiting for a few more people. We've got 15 people RSVP'd and we've got 7 on the call right now. So, oh, 6 because we've got my AI note taker, which I don't really need actually. So just a little bit of housekeeping is that we have this meeting is being recorded. I'm sure you got that little note. What that means is that if you like you will not be in the video unless you unmute. Okay, so if you unmute to ask a question, then you will be in the recording. And if you have a question and you don't want to be in the recording, you can just drop your question into the chat, and I can bring it up, or Carley can just read it, and that way you can get your questions answered without being on the video. That being said, we would love to like have you in the video, just as long as you're like, if you unmute, you're basically giving us the okay that you are going to be on the recording.
We'll get
So
started.
excited.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. Okay. Um, Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Held Sessions, honest midlife conversations to help you feel held, resourced, and rooted in yourself again. I'm Shawna Lane, nervous system and unconscious mind coach and the founder of Held. And this is a free community where we will explore the magic of midlife, ask honest questions, and get real actionable guidance from experts like Carley on everything from anxiety and sleep to hormones, grief, caring for aging parents, all the things that are very relevant for all of us. And yes, we'll probably laugh and cry together and cheer each other on as we do. That's what we're here for. And here we show up as we are. So curious, tired, hopeful, skeptical, scared, or all of the above. All of it is welcome here. And I'm so glad that you are spending your very, very valuable time with us today. And so honored to welcome Carley McConkey. And Carley is a clinical herbalist, holistic nutritionist, and women's health coach who helps busy women over 35 reduce anxiety, balance their hormones, and feel like themselves again. How aligned is that? Her approach blends science, nature, and practical support that fits real life, which is so important, giving women clear steps to feel grounded and supported in their bodies. Carley is also an incredible content creator, and you might know her as Carley Nadine on Instagram, where she posts great tips and homemade herbal remedies and beautiful recipes, the yummiest looking things. But today Carly's going to be talking about anxiety and perimenopause. And now, when I work with anxiety with my clients, I address it in a nervous system activation based on a future event that we don't feel resourced enough for. So I help build resources and capacity and then break the habit of anxiety. I work a lot with habits. But behind all of that, there are many biological reasons why women, especially in midlife, might be experiencing anxiety, which Carley will explore with us today. So, welcome, Carley.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen and thank you for the introduction. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about anxiety in perimenopause and what's actually going on. And let's be honest, we live in a world right now where we are inundated with information constantly. And it's a lot, and it can just really further our feeling of not doing enough, not being enough. It's just a lot. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what's actually going on, from a perspective, a holistic perspective, and things like that. So for some of you, this might be brand new information, might feel a little overwhelming. So I invite you just to take what you need and leave the rest. And then for some of you, this might be just a refresher. And, we can ask some questions that are a little bit more possibly like in depth at the end as well. So we will have a time at the end to ask questions. So save your questions to the end, and yeah, we'll get started. So when anxiety starts to feel different. So some of you might be anxious women. I know that's me. Hi. And, anxiety isn't new for you. Some of you, maybe you don't resonate with being anxious. It's very circumstantial for you. For you, maybe it's like before you do a presentation or before, something exciting's happening. Maybe you get, when you're hungover, you in the past got anxious, but you don't resonate with really being anxious. And maybe just lately, something's shifting, something's going on, and you're like, what the heck is going on? I'm not really feeling like myself. Or if you're a woman that is an anxious woman and it's just getting way worse. So this could look like waking up anxious, feeling on edge or wired for no reason, overthinking, worrying, or ruminating, less tolerance for stress than you used to have, digestive upset, maybe getting a little bit more bloating or diarrhea, heart palpitations or shakiness, heart palpitations, like even like when you lie down at night, sleep that doesn't feel restorative, and lastly, but not least, waking up in the middle of the night, usually between 2 and 4. So these are just a couple things that you might start to feel. And this is common and often misunderstood. So many women experienced increased anxiety during this time of life, perimenopause, and are often dismissed, usually because their periods are still regular. So they'll go to the doctor, maybe get an SSRI, maybe some Ativan, or just told that they need to, exercise more and, lose a little bit of weight. Or, what have you. But maybe you're not, maybe you feel very supported by your doctor. And in that case, amazing. But in any case, a lot of women are being dismissed during this time of life. There is more awareness that is growing, especially with social media and people speaking out and it not being this kind of taboo subject that was, just for, older women, or, you think it very much as something like your mom had, and you think it's something very far into the future. But I love that it's becoming more on the forefront, especially in mainstream media. I think that conversation needs to happen, and I'm really excited about it. So what we'll cover today is, I was saying to Shawna earlier that this could be a very, very in-depth presentation. I could talk about a lot of subjects, for an hour just about nutrition, but we're just basic. We're doing the basics today and introducing a lot of concepts. We're going to be talking about what's changing in perimenopause, why anxiety feels different during this phase, many drivers that I personally see in practice, and I do a ton of research and I've gotten a lot of education. So what is happening in the perimenopause space in general, not just in my practice? What can actually help? That's not just take this supplement. It's actual foundational things that, regardless where you're at, will help all of these drivers. And then what comes next? Okay, so what is perimenopause? So essentially, it's the transition before menopause. It can last upwards to 10 years. It really does vary. But usually it can start as early as late 30s, and usually average starts in early 40s, and can last upwards to 10 years. So hormones become less predictable. Many women are still cycling on the regular, so they're often dismissed and they're confused of why they feel a certain way. And I think it's really important to talk about perimenopause just through an energetic lens or traditional Chinese medicine lens. This is an area that I've been taught in herbal medicine and traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis. And so I think it's important just to talk about it from an energetic lens, because I am a holistic practitioner. I really think it's important to talk about. So this is a shift from outward energy to more inward energy. And it's a shift from more of those fertile years and output to more conservation and wisdom. And if you're someone that's familiar with the cycle in your follicular phase, that's, in some groups that's known as your inner summer, very like high energy, whereas your ovulatory phase where you ovulate, that's when is your inner summer. You feel more sexual, you feel more like you want to be around people. And then your luteal phase, which is before your first day of bleed, would be a time that's your inner autumn. So a time more of like rest and nesting and just really creative, being inward. And then your menstrual cycle when you bleed is generally known as the winter. And so I love looking at that because it's quite beautiful to look almost at perimenopause through that lens, that it's a time of inner creativity, really just looking inward, less. It's more of a heat time. We look a lot at different temperatures through the energetic lens. So it's a time of heat, restlessness, emotional intensity when balance is off. But when balance is in, it can be really a pivotal time in a woman's life. The body's asking for more nourishment, not to be pushed, which is completely opposite, in which we've been praised in this society that is very masculine and very, our worth is very much based on our productivity. And it's a change in rhythm, pace, and priorities. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the phases of perimenopause. So again, this isn't, black and white, and this isn't for you to do self-diagnosis whatsoever. This is just to offer a little bit of information, and it's not linear of what might be going on. So early perimenopause, very early in perimenopause, is usually menstrual cycles are still regular, but cycle length may vary a little bit. Progesterone is the first to decline, and estrogen might start to fluctuate. So for some women that never had estrogen dominant symptoms, all of a sudden they're getting them, and it's confusing. They experience anxiety, sleep changes, mood shifts, and PMS changes are very common. And then when you enter more late perimenopause, this is when the cycles become much more regular. So sometimes missing full periods for maybe months on end. Hormonal fluctuations that are way more pronounced. This is when the things that scream come. So more hot flashes, night sweats, sleep disruption, brain fog, and increased anxiety become more noticeable. And again, this isn't for everybody, and this isn't for me to, fear base in any sort of way. It's just hopefully validating some women. And then menopause it's basically it's defined as 12 consecutive months without a period, without spotting. And you have that day that 12 months has gone by. Happy birthday. You've gone through perimenopause. Everything from there on out is postmenopause. So perimenopause is quite the journey before we enter where the plane lands and you've entered menopause. And estrogen and progesterone levels stabilize at a lower baseline, and this marks the transition into a new phase of life. Okay, I love showing this. I'm a very visual person, and I love this graph by Dr. Laura Brydon. And if you haven't heard from her before, she's a really fantastic women's health practitioner. And I love this because it shows the basically our main hormones we're going to be talking about today, which is estrogen and progesterone. There are 3 types of estrogen, but estradiol is our strongest estrogen. And as you can see in our teens, this is when we're going through puberty. There's lots of ups and downs. And then during your reproductive years, if all is correct or goes well, you're going to have higher estrogen during your luteal phase, with that increase of your LH, FSH, and your estrogen, and you ovulate. And then after ovulation, you're going to have a really nice surge of your progesterone. We can't make progesterone in the amounts that we need without actually ovulating. And this is reproductive years. Then we enter our perimenopause right here, which is so much fun. We have a lot more fluctuation. And as you can see, there's nothing wrong with you. It's literally like what's happening in your body, and it's not your fault, and you're not going crazy. Your hormones are shifting quite a bit. And then in menopause, everything calms down. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the phases of perimenopause. So what's shifting under the surface? Hormone fluctuation, all in all, like hormone fluctuations, your stress response gets louder, recovery takes longer. And I really want to note this. This is a really, as someone who is neurodivergent, I have ADHD myself. I came upon this amazing and fascinating study that I want to share. And its new research shows that women with ADHD often experience perimenopause symptoms earlier and more intensely than women without, including anxiety, sleep disruption, mood changes, and cognitive overwhelm. And during this phase, a lot of women that might have had ADHD, but it was never really diagnosed, it can be really prominent. And I will link that research paper below because I think it's really fascinating. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about um, different types of anxiety. So I kind of added this slide in last minute because I really just love this concept. And it's inspired by Dr. Elaine Vora, who is a leading doctor right now in anxiety. And she has a more holistic, natural approach, which I really respect from more of an allopathic doctor. Sorry, I just need to sip my tea. Okay, and so she breaks this down into two different types of anxiety. One being avoidable anxiety. So we can look at this as things that are triggered by lifestyle stressors. So think of hangovers, lack of sleep, things that we might be able to get away with in the past, and we know now are going to make us feel anxious and awful. Maybe being on our phones till scrolling till midnight and getting like 4 hours sleep. You know that's going to make you feel awful the next day. They're often physical and reactive, and they improve the foundational support, which we're going to talk about today. And then there's true anxiety. So she describes as more purposeful anxiety. And I really love this because this is a great opportunity in this phase of life that we can start paying attention to. It's more informative and directional. So you can think of it more as an inner compass. Not what's wrong with us, but more rather what's right with us. What is asking for our attention? This could be misalignment and where we see injustice in our lives. It could be in our communities and the world at large, because let's be honest, we live in a world right now that, is very triggering. And this could also be relationships, speaking personally, going through divorce, deciding that maybe what you wanted for most of your life or being told what you wanted isn't what you actually want. So this invites reflection and course correction. And what I love about this concept is when we reduce avoidable anxiety by stabilizing the body, regulating hormones by some amazing tools, we're better able to listen to anxiety that's actually trying to guide us to live, our most expressive life that we want. That is also, I'm not by any means ever disregarding any sort of mental anxiety, but this is just something I really wanted to share. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about core drivers. So this is what I see a lot of. There are many, and we could really go into great detail on each one, but I'm just going to go over the ones that are the leading ones that I see. First one is hormone instability. Surprise, surprise. Progesterone decline and estrogen fluctuation. So progesterone is most often, if not always, the first hormone to decline. The progesterone is produced in our corpus luteum, which happens when we ovulate, and it supports calm, sleep, stress tolerance, and it can also balance the effects of estrogen. So we need progesterone to keep that beautiful estrogen in check. And then estrogen doesn't just decline. I think that's often a misconception is we think like, oh, once we enter perimenopause, it's just a decline in estrogen. Estrogen actually, instead of where progesterone's declining, estrogen is becoming erratic. So it doesn't just steadily decline, it becomes completely unpredictable. And sometimes raising at levels higher than any of us have experienced, even in our fertile years. Rapid spikes and drops definitely increase nervous system reactivity. And there's a lot I could say about this, but just to make it super easy, low progesterone equals low GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter that's really, really important for stress, calm, sleep, and low progesterone. High cortisol is also very involved in this as well. When we have high cortisol, we're not able to properly produce a lot of the hormones we need to produce. especially progesterone. And this leads to more anxiety. So just to give you a quick little, hey, how are ya, little look over here. We could go into way more detail, but just to make it easy, low progesterone equals low GABA equals high cortisol, which equals more anxiety. And how this shit can show up from a hormonal standpoint, there's so many different things, but just to mention a few: sudden anxiety, mood reactivity, poor stress tolerance, digestive issues, and cycle-linked symptoms. The next is blood sugar instability or glucose dysregulation. And this is absolutely huge, I would say, for women that have ADHD, for women that are trying to support their hormones, for anxiety. This is metabolic health. Like, this is absolutely massive. Why? Because hormone shifts reduce glucose tolerance. It lowers progesterone and fluctuating estrogen. You're lowering lower progesterone and fluctuating estrogen that I just talked about, makes blood sugar less stable. So in our, in a classic cycle where maybe your estrogen is a bit higher during your follicular, it's actually very insulin, makes you insulin sensitive. So in your follicular, before you ovulate, you can get away with eating more, sugar and things like that, where in your follicular or in your luteal phase, you definitely are more susceptible to blood sugar instability. So during this time, women might be getting way more cravings for sugar, and then, they eat more sugar, and then they get this blood sugar spike and crash, and it's a vicious cycle. And so low blood sugar dips trigger stress hormones. So once our blood sugar rises, what comes up must come down, and low glucose equals cortisol, and adrenaline, which can increase anxiety, heart palpitations, irritability, shakiness. And what's really fascinating is blood sugar instability or glucose dysregulation or insulin instability feels very, very similar to anxiety physically. Like 100%, a lot of these symptoms correlate like to a T. And cortisol creates a feedback loop. So repeated dips train the body to rely on stress hormone for fuel. So it's interesting because we won't get into it too much today, but cortisol can feel friggin' good. You don't think it is. We look at it like this, it's negative thing. And, it does have some benefits, but once we start getting that cortisol rush, it can be actually quite addictive for some women, and it can feel really good. It gives you this like boost, but over long periods of time, it can really wreak havoc on our system. And it's one of those things with a cracked foundation, things are not going to be stable, and they're gonna fall. So, there's only so long that you can keep pushing and pushing without, having that break. So it's important that we support our body during this time so you can avoid that. And then the liver becomes a bottleneck. So the liver is really, really important. One of the most important organs in the body. It has over 500 different functions, but it is crucial for hormone regulation and for anxiety. So what happens is it can increase demand for hormone clearance. It's really, really important for clearing excess estrogen from the body. It's also really important for glucose regulation. So overnight, our liver is actually responsible for taking glycogen and releasing glucose into the system when our blood sugar gets a little low. But when it's overwhelmed, this is when it can lead to adrenaline and cortisol, and you wake up feeling those feelings of shakiness, irritability, anxiety between meals, waking up at 2 a.m. with racing mind, feeling worse on coffee and an empty stomach. Yeah, all the things. Okay, next is sleep and circadian disruption. This is a big one that I see during this time when we are just trying to be productive. There's a lot on our plate. We're just trying to get so much done in a day. Sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented during this time, especially with decreasing progesterone. Which reduces the GABA, meditating, calming, and sleep depth, which I just talked about. Night waking increases due to circadian hormone shifts, We spend a lot of time in our society with blue light, whether you work in an office with, lights shining in your face with no with no windows, or if you're someone that's in front of their screen for quite a bit of time during the day. Our circadian rhythm can really, really get disrupted. And when I say circadian rhythm, it's our internal clock. It's we very much as humans are nature. We're very much a part of it. So, during the summer, that's a time where we have more energy, where we can get away with eating at later hours and such. But when they say circadian rhythm, it's not just sleep. It's, your sunlight. It's, when you're eating. It's your blue light exposure, all those kind of things. And so this can disrupt sleep and hormone regulation. So poor sleep, it's like that which came first, chicken or egg sort of thing, and that vicious cycle once again, which is poor sleep further disrupts estrogen and progesterone, cortisol increases, blood sugar imbalance. It affects all of it, right? But your hormones are off, and so you're not sleeping well. So this vicious cycle. Stress hormone rises and lowers next day resilience. So elevated cortisol and adrenaline increases anxiety and emotional reactivity. And this happens mostly for a lot of women, their luteal phase. So for those that aren't familiar with the phases, this is the phase after ovulation, right before your bleed. And so this is usually about day 16 to day 28, give or take, day 30. And this is when we should have high progesterone, but lower progesterone and estrogen being higher really incorporates more of that estrogen dominance, reduced insulin sensitivity, and higher nighttime cortisol. Okay, then I want to talk a little bit about histamine sensitivity. So this is gaining a lot. This is happening a lot in many of my clients and people nowadays. This could be due to, folks that are dealing with long COVID, folks that are dealing with a nervous system that is so completely dysregulated and a system that is on high alert. In this post-COVID world that we live in, histamine sensitivity is fortunately gaining more traction, but it's still a little bit, it's very nuanced and it's still very much in more of the alternative space. And so histamine, I won't talk too much about it today. This is just because it's not the case for everybody, but I do think that it needs to be talked about. This histamine is essentially what happens when you can think of when you get allergies. It's our bodies produces histamine to create an inflammatory response. And it can be very helpful in certain instances, but when we're not clearing it properly due to many reasons, it can cause histamine sensitivity, or some folks can also get what's called mast cell activation, which are different. But again, we could do a whole class on that, so I'm not going to get too much into it today. But estrogen and histamine amplify one another. So more estrogen can equal more histamine. And so more histamine can activate more estrogen activity. So again, it can be very much that vicious cycle. DAO enzyme declines. So this is an enzyme that really helps break down histamines, especially if you're someone that is experiencing more in the gut. Lower progesterone, gut inflammation, and stress reduces histamine clearance. And the nervous system becomes more reactive. We are living in a world where how could you not have a dysregulated nervous system, right? It's definitely the society that we live in, and as I mentioned, this post-COVID world where we are very much in more of a reactive state, physically and mentally. And histamine stimulates cortisol and reduces GABA, increasing anxiety and sleep disruption, and just adds to all the things we talked about. So it can show up for some women with racing heart. This is the palpitation can happen a lot. Insomnia, reacting to high histamine foods. So a lot of bone broths and fermented foods and cured aged meats. Again, we're not going to get into it too much today. Panic sensation. A lot of women experience flushing after eating certain foods, and anxiety that spikes at night or around ovulation or in your luteal phase. Again, not everyone experiences this, but I do think it's important to talk about because it's very common in perimenopause when we have that fluctuating estrogen. Okay, and then lower nervous system lower nervous system capacity. which is also known as rushing woman syndrome. So think of reducing of that body's capacity to self-regulate, lowering progesterone and fluctuating estrogen again, reduces that nervous system's ability to return to that baseline, easier activation, slower recovery, fight or flight in a constant state, overwhelm from everyday stimulation. So normal demands and sensory input now feels excessive and draining. So I'm sure I know that I can speak to this from personal experience. Things that I used to be able to handle, I can't anymore. And it's really frustrating. So how it shows up, wired but exhausted. So you want to sleep, but you can't, overstimulated, easily overwhelmed, feeling constantly rushed, that never-ending to-do list, multitasking, and unable to relax even when things are fine. Okay, so I just talked about all of the things that, could be happening, which let's all just take a deep breath. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I know it can feel overwhelming, but what we're going to talk about now are the foundations. And so these foundations I'm talking about today, they're going to support every single one of those. So whether you're a woman that's dealing with histamine or mast cell activation, whether you're a woman that's dealing with the hormone fluctuations from hell, or you're someone that is just like not able to sleep, we're going to talk about the foundations that will support all of those things. And I think we can really be tempted by, incorporating a new supplement or the latest thing. But as someone who has worked in the health industry for almost a decade now and have been very tempted by a lot of shiny objects, I can tell you right now, the foundations are gold. And once we build those foundations, then you can really add in more of the advanced things to implement that can help you even further. So again, these foundations are going to support you wherever you're at. And again, it could be overwhelming. So just start where you're at. It doesn't need to all be incorporated at once. Okay, nourishment. So food. This, as I mentioned, could be an entire presentation in and of itself, but we're going to just talk about the basics here. So adequate protein and fiber. If you've opened an Instagram app, if you've opened Instagram or any sort of social media, I'm sure you've heard eat more protein, eat more protein. But I'm just here to tell you that women entering this phase of life, it is so incredibly important. And I would say about 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal as a general guide can be very, very helpful for women, especially breakfast. This is going to set you up for your day, especially when it comes to blood sugar and hormones. Prioritizing fiber. So when I say fiber, carbohydrates, I'm talking about vegetables, fruit, whole foods, whole grains. Fiber's queen. She's great. Not everybody, again, everybody is unique. And I think that it's important to note that although fiber is amazing, it can be that case of, the Goldilocks portion, that it's about finding the right portion for you. So some folks that might have, digestive symptoms or digestive issues, maybe they don't handle high amounts of protein, or higher amounts of fiber at this time. So again, this is just a general guideline. Things like berries that are really high in polyphenols are incredibly helpful for inflammation. Flax, which is really, really high in omega-3s and also fiber, can be really supportive of this time. And then healthy fats are really important. So cholesterol is something that is looked at very vilified, but cholesterol is so incredibly important for the formation of our hormones. We can't make pregnenolone, which is our queen master hormone, to make all of the hormones that we need. So making sure that we have healthy fats is really important. And then consistent meal timing. So 3 solid meals a day, trying to avoid those long gaps or consistent snacking. So, as someone who used to, I pride myself on not being hungry in the morning. I'm just not someone who likes to eat in the morning. I would have a coffee and I would eat maybe at like 1. This is going to work in midlife. It's really not going to be very supportive. And so I would suggest, as a rule of thumb, eating 3 solid meals a day, like adequate amount, so that you're not hungry an hour later or constantly snacking. We want to make sure that we're having those 3 solid meals a day. Again, everybody's different, but this is just general guidelines. Protein, breakfast before coffee. Yeah, I would say having a breakfast that has a solid amount of protein, that's low in sugar, high in fiber, before coffee is going to set you up. If you're someone that doesn't, I invite you to just like 2 weeks, try it out and just note and see how you feel. Adequate minerals and hydration, so incredibly important to make sure that we have that. Really important for stress response and fatigue. So making sure that you are getting, adequate hydration. And then hot tips for support. Apple cider vinegar or some digestive bitters, herbal bitters before meals can be really helpful for supporting the liver and also for helping mitigate blood sugar spikes. So if you have a little bit of apple cider vinegar, it can just really, really help with that. And it's really, really accessible. I think you can get a bottle of apple cider vinegar for $10. Okay, general walks after meals to support glucose uptake. So yeah, maybe after lunch, put aside 15 minutes and you're like, I'm gonna go for a friggin' walk for my mental health. Go for your silly little mental health walk. I promise you, it sounds unsexy, but it's a great way for mental health in terms of getting sunlight in your eyes, which will regulate that, circadian rhythm, gets you away from your screen or work for 15 minutes right after your lunch, allows you to digest, reduce that blood sugar spike. And maybe if you don't have a podcast or anything like that, and you just like walk, sometimes a lot of creative ideas can come during that time. And then psyllium husks, this is just a hot tip. Psyllium husks in the morning can be added as a fiber support. I just learned recently, actually, from one of my mentors who's a naturopath, some psyllium husks in water. So like I would do about half a tablespoon in some water, create that little gel, take it back, and then chase it with a little bit of bitters or like some lemon and water. This can really activate your liver, which can be really, really helpful for breaking down food and just excreting excess estrogen that we want to get out of that system. Sounds simple and unsexy, but drink water, have your protein, go for your silly little mental health walk, and have some psyllium husks. You can do that for free or $10. Okay, next is circadian rhythm. So this is absolutely massive. Morning anchors. So morning light exposure, that can really set your body clock. So just going for a walk, for the first, when you wake up, when the sun, unfortunately now it's quite dark very early, but and if you're someone who works in an office, just, the first chance that you get, just maybe step outside and get a bit of light in your eyes. Take your sunglasses off, get some sunlight in your eyes. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of these biohackers now are saying like, it's got to be at this time, at this, very specific, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're someone who works in an office, like first break, just like step outside. That's all you need to do. And then I really invite you I heard this once and it really stuck with me, that when we look at our phones first thing in the morning, let's say, this was me for many years, wake up, first thing I do, grab my phone, scroll, look on social media, check my emails. Oh my God, I got to do this, 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 this. It's already started. You're not even out of bed yet. And sometimes, 15 minutes goes by and you realize, oh my God, I'm like legit still in bed. I invite you, what I heard is once we do that, we're giving our energy away, our precious energy that's ours. We're giving that away to other people through social media. When you see what someone else is doing in their life, you're giving your precious energy away, emails to work. So if you can, for the first just 20 minutes, just don't look at social media. Don't look at email. Let that 20 minutes be for you. Maybe that's doing a workout. Maybe that's sipping on some tea. Maybe that's literally just sitting on your couch, staring into nothing. Whatever it is, create ritual and routine that works for you, but that's yours. Where you can be creative, where you can, just show yourself some self-respect before you give it to other people, just to be blunt. Evening wind down routine, reducing that stimulation at night, screens, scrolling, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to do this 2 hour routine before bed, but just inviting you to have more of a calming, predictable wind down routine before bed, and just aim for 10 o'clock. But yeah, put your phone away for 30 minutes before you go to bed. Reduce that blue light, light some candles. It can actually be so relaxing and feel very, I don't want to say decadent, but it can feel just really lovely when you light a candle and maybe read some fiction. But yeah, I again invite you, just disrupt that routine that maybe you've been doing. If you're someone who's guilty of, scrolling until 11 o'clock at night, maybe you practice, for 2 weeks, no phone in the bedroom. Yeah. And then that also protects sleep quality. That no, try not to do the caffeine after 2 p.m. if you're sensitive. And I can honestly say, full out, reducing or eliminating alcohol. This is absolutely massive during this time. And then hot tips for support, gentle evening walks to regulate your nervous system. So even if it's dark out, maybe go for a little walk. Dimming lights after sunset to support sleep signals. The held walking meditation that you already have and you're already a part of. I love this. I did the held walking meditation consistently and consecutively for about 3 weeks. And I loved it. It was 15 minutes long. All I did was push play, listen to the walking meditation. I think I did like a full, I think I did like a 2 lap around the block and then came back. The meditation ended and it was 15 minutes. It went by so quickly and it just felt very productive for me because not only was I regulating my nervous system, getting my circadian rhythm by looking at the light, but also just like really supporting myself. And so, yeah, that's a great thing to incorporate. Or the sleep sessions in the Held portal. I know that that are there can be very, very supportive as well for folks that are having a really hard time sleeping. And then just to note a couple of things. I don't want to talk too much about supplements because I am very, very passionate about holistic care, which is everyone is very unique and not one supplement's going to work for everybody. But magnesium spray on the feet can be very, very lovely and supportive for some people. L-theanine, I absolutely love and feel like it can be very supportive for a lot of folks. And passion flower is a really herbal ally that I absolutely love. It can really, really help with overthinkers, especially anxious women. Okay, nervous system support. So reducing stress activation. So creating clear boundaries around time, energy, and commitments. Stop saying no. Stop people pleasing. Stop, doing things that you don't want to do just for the sake of other people. And, not wanting to disrupt the peace. As someone who really, really can resonate with that, yeah, this is a beautiful time of life to maybe start creating more boundaries. And it doesn't have to be all at once, but maybe you start noticing like where in your life can you create boundaries? Where can you start saying no to really prioritize and to, really, yeah, just put yourself first in certain areas, regardless of where you're at in your life or how busy you are. Body base, so like even boundaries for you, maybe that is, saying no to an event that that you're like, you know what, I don't want to drink, I don't want to, I'm in my luteal phase, I'm feeling really tired, I'm not going to say no. Or maybe for you, boundaries is not setting clear boundaries with social media. Maybe that's not being on social media on Saturdays and Sundays. Maybe that means not bringing your phone into your room, and having an alarm, outside of your room or an alarm clock in your room. Yeah, but boundaries can be an infinite amount of things, but you can decide what works for you. And then body-based regulation, so practices that work with the body rather than forcing it. For anxious women, I mean, if you're an anxious woman, I'm sure you've been told to relax or just to meditate. And for a woman that is experiencing anxiety, this isn't suited for everybody. This can create more rumination. It can feel very uncomfortable. So this is where some body-based practices can be really, really helpful. So whether that be shaking your body, whether that be, like heel taps, whatever that looks like. There's so many different body-based somatic things that you can look up and again, find what's right for you. But just knowing that, just because something's popular, like meditation, which is an amazing tool, isn't work for everybody. And then building capacity. And then there's tons of body-based regulation things that you can get through the Held portal. And then building capacity. So prioritizing predictability and simplicity. Get into your boring years. Start to be boring, like get predictable. Create a routine that you do every day. If that looks like eating the same breakfast because that's all you have the capacity for, eat the same breakfast. It doesn't matter. Obviously when it comes to nutrition, we do want variety, but I'm just saying like sometimes we just need to assess where we're at and little small steps. That is making a difference. That is progress. And then building capacity also could be rebuilding trust with your body. This is a phase where maybe we feel really disconnected from our bodies. Maybe we feel angry. Maybe we feel pissed off. Maybe you're someone that hasn't had kids and you're really battling with, what do you want to do? Like, this is just an example from speaking from personal experience, but it can feel really frustrating. And so just rebuilding that trust within yourself and in your body with some of these nervous system support can be, really, really helpful. And just listening to your body a bit more instead of against it. And then some hot tips for support. Short nervous system check-ins through the day. So I love these. I call these like little micro moments. If you're like me, and you work at a desk and a computer, sometimes you can find yourself holding your breath, maybe like slouching over so much, maybe clenching your jaw. So I like these micro moments because they don't require a lot of time. So it could literally be 30 seconds where, maybe you set a timer, maybe right before lunch or whatever the anchor is. Maybe you do your micro moment is, taking a deep breath, just noticing, hey, am I clenching my jaw? Am I holding my breath right now? Like, how am I showing up in my body? Because sometimes it's how we check in and how we self-correct in these little moments throughout the day, rather than just doing, an hour of meditation at the beginning of the day, right? Sometimes these micro things and just creating this awareness can be really, really helpful. Breath work and grounding can be helpful for a lot of folks. Nature walks, I can't say enough about connecting with nature, and somatic check-ins. And then the Held portal for gentle on-demand nervous system support, which is awesome. So what's great about all of these things is that you're already in the Held portal. And like, I'm not just saying this, like I loved doing this collaboration because Shawna's already doing a lot of these things that can be very, very supportive. So as I mentioned, you can do a lot of these things in the Held portal in combination with the things I mentioned. And another thing I wanted to say too is start being the participant and observer in your life. I loved hearing this from a program that I took on trauma-informed coaching. And it's about being the participant and observer in your experience. And what does that mean? So that means that rather than just participating in your life, which is like acting almost in this tunnel vision of like doing things the way you've always been doing them, really not having a self-awareness, start to almost be like two parts in yourself. So you're the person doing the things, but then maybe sometimes during maybe these micro moments, you're also the observer in how you participate in life. So for example, how are you opening up mail? Is it in this sense of urgency? How are you driving? Is it, oh my God, I have to get somewhere, even though you're like, friend, you have nowhere to be? Are you rushing like constantly? So, and instead of being negative and putting yourself down, just think, okay, I'm going to use this as information to realize how I'm showing up in my life. And so, yeah, just being the participant and observer in your experience, which is like no pressure. It's just about getting curious, which I love. It takes the pressure off. And if you're an anxious woman, the last thing you need is more pressure. Okay, so we talked about the core things that could be activating. We talked about a lot of the tools that you can incorporate regardless of where you're at. And then I want to talk about a little bit about once you have those foundations set, this is where advanced interventions can actually come in. So these are things like hormone replacement therapy, HRT, or bioidentical hormone replacement therapy like BHRT can be incredibly supportive. If you're someone that chooses to go that route. We're not going to talk about it today because again, I could talk about this in detail. It would take probably, a whole class to talk about it. Strength and weight training. This is massive during this time. But once we get the foundations, getting a solid weight training routine in can be really helpful for building muscle during this phase, which can help with, long-term health and longevity, glucose, insulin uptake. It's really, really important for that as well. So weight training is incredibly important during this phase. Herbal medicine can be really incredibly supportive. Working with an herbalist that, doesn't work from an allopathic, where it's like this herb's good for this. They work in a holistic way, such as a registered herbalist that works with energetics as well. Supplements can be really helpful during this phase. We're told all the time to increase things. There's tons of different things that we're told to take, which can be very supportive, but again, it doesn't work for everybody. Everything is always nuanced. And if you ever hear someone telling you otherwise, run because there's no such thing as a magic pill. I can tell you that from experience. Peptides can be are gaining popularity right now, and they can be incredibly supportive for women in midlife, especially for women that are dealing with glucose dysregulation, so blood sugar regulation, metabolism, weight gain. It can be really, really supportive. New things are coming out that it can be very supportive for women with mast cell activation, so histamine as well. But again, in Canada, it's not regulated. There's a few things that are regulated, but you would have to work with a doctor. But then the states, they're gaining a lot of popularity. But I just wanted to say that we're a little lacking on studies, but they can be very supportive. Therapy and coaching support, I think, can be incredibly supportive. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or other structural modalities. Medication when appropriate. I'm a practitioner that works with herbal medicine. I can tell you right now, medication can be incredibly supportive for some women during certain times. It's not black and white. And again, if anyone tells you that it has to be black and white, I would run. Don't listen to them, and don't feel guilty if you're someone that requires medication during a certain phase of your life. And then things like red light therapy, sauna, those kind of things can be very supportive as well. So that is my presentation. I will take a couple of Q&As. We're kind of short on time, but I will go over a little bit. But yeah.
Thank you, Carley. That was
Thank you.
awesome.
I know it's a lot of
Awesome.
information, but I will
Yeah.
also, I just wanted to say as well, is I also have a free guide that I am going to make sure that, everyone has access to. And these
Mhm.
are like straight up tips that you can incorporate, 5 simple tips you can start with. It's not general, just, nutrition. It's more of like protein, like exact macros, like how to do that, why it matters, and things like that. So I will make sure. Do you want me to? Yeah, how will we do that, Shawna?
Yeah, so if you want to just stop sharing your
Yes,
screen, we still have that, and then we can see
great.
more of your beautiful face. And then we've got Taylor here in the call, and she's going to drop a bunch of links in there, including links on how you can find Carley, where you can find me. There's already a link for the Held portal, which is actually a little bit separate than that Held sessions. So some people in the call are not in the Held portal, just to like clarify that little detail. But Taylor's going to drop the link for that document in there as well that you just mentioned. And I do want to be conscious of everybody's time. It's 12:56 according to my computer, which is sometimes wrong. So if anybody needs to jump out, just know there will be a recording, but I'm totally okay to go a little bit over time to answer some questions, as long as you are, Carley.
Yeah,
There
that
was
should
a
be okay.
question in the chat from Lisa about the mineral support. You're talking about like mineral support generally, but yeah, like specifically, what would you recommend for mineral support?
Yeah, great question. So I would say clean water is really incredibly important. So getting a filter, I think is really, really important. So clean air, clean water is really important as humans. So it doesn't have to be expensive, but getting a filter that filters out things like fluoride, if you can, and things like that can be really, really supportive of your health. And then it could be something as simple right now as incorporating like a little bit of sea salt can be really helpful for women that are experiencing anxiety. There's also trace minerals is something that I really like. So there's a company called Trace Minerals, and they do almost like a seawater based one. It doesn't taste the best, but it can be really, really helpful as well. And we want to make sure that we're getting enough potassium in that as well. So when it comes to minerals, I would just say, yeah, making sure you're having mineral rich water. So whether that be through a filter that's remineralizing your water, or if you're looking at a supplement, something like trace minerals can be really, really helpful. Or if you wanted to go even advanced and seeing what minerals will work for you, you could do an HTME test, which is called a hair mineral analysis test. This is more advanced and it's quite an accessible test. I think it's about $100. But you can work with practitioners like myself that actually test minerals like in your hair and how they're being excreted and can really, put together a protocol that's really, really helpful for you for that. But generally, I would say with minerals, filtered water that has, those stones at the bottom. I have a lovely one in the background from Santivia that's pretty well priced. But yeah, getting a trace mineral drops can be really helpful. But I will say that slow amounts, low and slow. I have some people that, go to town and it can actually cause a little bit of diarrhea and can be a little bit too much. So I would say like start slow if you're doing the mineral drops, or just start with a little bit of sea salt and filtered water. I hope that answered your question. But magnesium is, I would say, the only mineral in which I would say most people could use. So if that's for you, a little bit of magnesium spray on your feet, which is more topical, or maybe that's a magnesium bisglycinate supplement capsule. Just see how your body feels. If you don't feel like working with someone, it can be very, very helpful. But other than that, I would say minerals are very synergistic and antagonistic of one another. So you don't want to overdo any single mineral, in my opinion. Yeah. Nettle tea is another thing that is one of my absolute favorites. She's my OG. I've got a little pot right here. Mother Nature's multivitamin, so high in magnesium, sodium, potassium, like so many minerals. So if you want to get an all natural mineral supplement, a nettle infusion is what's up.
I love that. I love that too. Um, And there's so many things that was like such a great presentation, Carly. And I loved talking about like your inner compass and just like listening to your anxiety because sometimes it's really telling you something. And that's
Yeah,
something I talk a lot about with clients too. Um, and the whole like circadian piece. I mean, I know there's some people who are clients of mine that are in the call or have been in the call and they've heard me harp on, blue light at night and like getting outside in the morning. And I don't know about you, but like my family's always like, Mom, why can't we have lights on? It's like,
right?
no, no lights.
Yeah,
So I can be a little crazy about it, but I just feel so much better. Like, and you're talking
yeah,
about these foundations, like they seem like such simple things, but even as a practitioner, and I don't know if you can speak to this too, but I
yeah,
find that I'll be like, like why do I feel like shit? And it's like, oh, I haven't been like I had toast and almond butter for breakfast. Like I haven't been getting my protein in the morning. And
yeah,
you just start to like fall off of the habit of things sometimes and realize like, oh, I don't feel well. And so it's easy to kind of reach for like the next like shiniest, brightest thing like you were talking about. But it's like, okay, like, am I eating enough? Like, why am I so exhausted? Why do I have brain fog? It's like, oh, I'm
yeah.
like not eating anything. Like, oh, I just had a protein bar for lunch. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
that's not enough.
I totally agree. And I can say that, I think that's why it's really important to talk about the foundations, because I think, again, we're in this world that's very, we're being trying to be sold things like all the time, products and this and that. And, sometimes they can be very, very helpful. But as a practitioner, I can say the foundations are unsexy, but they are the things that will support you long term. And I can even say with myself that I used myself in an experiment actually last week. I thought, oh my, I'm such a good sleeper. Oh, I'm so lucky. I don't have issues with sleeping. And recently I kind of used this little experiment and I was really into the show and I watched it till like 11 o'clock at night. And my sleep was awful. I couldn't sleep because I passed
Mm.
that window and I was like in front of a screen watching a stimulating show until like 11. I couldn't sleep till 1 in the morning. My sleep was
Yeah.
awful and I was so anxious the next day. The other thing I did was I think I was scrolling social media really late into the night. And I was like, of course, my sleep has been awful this week. And so, yeah, it can sound unsexy sometimes, and you don't have to be perfect. But what's really cool is once we start integrating some of these foundations, we really start to recognize, like, oh, I actually feel awful when I do this. Or, oh my gosh, when I have 2 glasses of red wine, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
maybe in the moment it feels good, but like 3 days later, why do I feel so anxious? And you start to just really listen to your body. And instead of pushing through, your body is telling you things that you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know this. Like, and that's again speaking from personal experience. Like, I
Totally.
realized I couldn't have red wine anymore because the anxiety simply was not worth it to me anymore. And so I
Yeah.
was able, instead of then once I had that information, I was able to make an educated decision. Okay, if I have the wine, cool, but I know that my anxiety will be out through the roof tomorrow. But at least I know that and I can make the choice rather than just like being blind and just not knowing like what's triggering this, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah,
then making those choices as we need. Like, I never
yeah,
want to tell people, like, don't have a glass of wine with your
totally.
girlfriends. Like, don't, and don't stay up late watching a show. Sometimes staying up late watching a show is exactly the therapy that you need.
Exactly.
But at the
Exactly.
same time, being able to recognize, like, I know that I'm going to not sleep well and I'm probably going to be tired tomorrow, but like,
Yeah,
I'm
eighty
willing to own
twenty, right? It's
it.
80/20
Yeah.
because then we build that resilience. And so when we do have the wine with our friends in a nice dinner and what we want, and we don't eat all these blood sugar balancing things, and maybe sometimes we have a freaking croissant for breakfast because we want it, or we stay up late watching a show because it's really fun and that's what we want to do. When it's not all the time and we've built that resilience, then you're not going to feel as shitty the next day because we've built
Yep.
those foundations, right? So.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Are there any other questions from
There was a
anyone that's
question in the
here?
chat by Haley. She was asking, she wants to know your take on essential amino acids when it's difficult to get adequate protein in a day, and if this could be a sustainable source to consider.
Yeah, great question. I think amino acids are amazing. For those that don't know, are made up of amino acids. So full proteins is your full amino acid profile. So amino acids are things like uh, L-theanine and arginine. They're all the things that make up the building blocks of protein. Okay, so amino acids are really, really important. Yeah, I think it can be very supportive. For those that can't get adequate protein, yeah, I would say like I invite you to like let's work on that. Like where aren't you getting the protein? Are you finding it hard to reach like 100 grams? Are you finding it hard to maybe you're a vegetarian and you're finding it hard to have a variety of complete proteins? Yeah, I would say like let's ask the questions of like maybe how we can support in that way. But I would say, yeah, amino acids can be really, really supportive if you're taking a supplement. But I think it's important to say that supplements should be supplements. Just to be completely blunt, they should be supplementing something that you can't get. So even protein powders, right? That's a supplement. It's not something that should be the foundation, but should be something that you're supplementing in. So I would say laying the foundations most importantly, but absolutely, I think that amino acids can be very supportive based on the individual. Yeah. I think that answered your question.
Great. Did that? Yeah. Okay, great.
Cool.
Um, Awesome.
I think
So
we did have a question in the portal that was asked.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
a few questions. There was one about testosterone.
Right. Yes. There was one about a testosterone hormone replacement therapy that
Yeah.
someone asked. And what I'll say with hormone replacement therapy is that everyone is so unique. And so I would never start with testosterone. For those that might not know, testosterone might be helpful for folks, for women that are experiencing like low libido, like energy, those kind of things. It can be very, very supportive. But I will say that personally, as a practitioner, that wouldn't be my first hormone to go to. I would say like you can support progesterone with certain things, but I would say working closely with a practitioner, naturopath that really knows hormone replacement therapy, and if you need it, and testing, making sure that that's something you need can be really, really supportive. So I guess my answer to your question about supplementing with hormone replacement therapy specifically for testosterone can be very, very supportive, but it really does depend on an individual. And I think that that wouldn't be my first hormone that I would start with. And I think if it was something very specifically like low libido, there's many other things that I would incorporate before testosterone. And that's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, it's actually like my personal share is that I started menopause in 2019 after going through chemotherapy. So my like perimenopause and menopausal journey has been like very different, and yet still very much a menopausal journey. And so I've been taking bioidentical hormones since then. Basically, I know I had a bit of a period where I was going through all the hot flashes and all of the things. And then I brought in bioidenticals, and I have experimented with some testosterone gel actually for just to see, and I was working with a naturopath, and she was like, just try it and
Try it
see.
out. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I use it sort of like randomly. I'll be like, oh, I feel like I kind of need a little bit, or like,
Yeah.
I wonder if this might be helpful right now, rather than sticking to like a really regimented schedule. And part of that is because I'm really trying to, in my experience of life, really lean into my feminine, which is something that, hasn't always been my way. And I think a lot of us, you're talking about like productivity and like needing to be like, go, 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 productive and very in our masculine. And I've been trying to really emphasize the other side of that for myself and let go of what happens for a lot of people in menopause and perimenopause is letting go of a bunch of the armor that we've been carrying. Right. And so I'm curious, like for myself, and I've been kind of experimenting with it, is leaning into, what about oxytocin? Like even that whole like dopamine oxytocin kind of
Yeah.
driver. And men tend to be like really driven by dopamine, and women are really driven by oxytocin. And dopamine still feels really good, and productivity can still feel really good. But what happens when we soften? Um, and that being said, it doesn't discount testosterone as a great option because, for some people it can be really important for like maintaining muscle or,
Yeah.
any of those things. And then how can we use maybe like lifting heavy weights to boost our testosterone? And that again would be very bio-individual based on your ability to make hormones at all.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've been really kind of like loving exploring that world of the whole like the differences between like the masculine and the feminine
I love
and our
that.
biology and our hormones. And
Yeah, I love that. And again, like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy can be a game changer for a lot of women, but some women it doesn't. Like some women, maybe they have mast cell activation, and if they were to incorporate more estrogen, that might cause them to have way more reactions. So it really is based on the individual. And I also wanted to say regarding testosterone, and I'm curious, I don't know the full answer to this, but I'm a very curious person, is there's something called aromatase, so which is essentially an enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen. So I'm just curious of for women that are estrogen dominant, if that could be more problematic. So again, I don't have the answer to that, but hormones are, you know, they're like this symphony, right? And so I think we need to stop looking at things from this allopathic lens where it's like, take this and it'll solve your problems, right? Because
Yeah.
everything has a ripple effect, every single thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
I know.
Well,
I
this is,
loved this. I was like, let's
I
keep
know
talking and
we could
asking
go on for
questions.
another hour, I'm sure.
Yeah, I
Carly
really
and I, when
enjoyed
we were
that.
talking about doing this, we just started kind of yapping about it, and we were like, we could just be recording this right now, and this would be a great call. Um, but I think we should wrap it up. And before we go, I wanted to say absolutely thank you so much to Carly, and thank you for everybody who has taken some time to be here today. It means so much to me. We've got just over 40 people in the Health Sessions community, the midlife community right now, which is like it just means so much to me to be able to create community, especially right now with all of the crazy stuff that is happening in the world. And what a better way to to stand up is to befriend each other and to like be part of something together. And for me, I think that's one of the most important contributions that I can make. And I also want to mention that these are going to be monthly calls, but we might be dropping some like little mini chats in between. We're going to see, and we're making it up as we go along. We just want to be able to provide the most value for everybody. So if there's anything that you want to learn about or hear about, people that you want to hear about, anybody you would recommend having on the calls, just like drop it into that community chat and just like let us know what's going on in your life because yeah, let's like be there and be in it together. And next month, I think it's the 24th of February, but I'll have to confirm the date. We're going to have a friend of mine, Monica Lau, come in from Long Way Home Therapy, and she's going to be talking about microdosing psilocybin, which is, something near and dear to my heart, but also a potentially really great option for dealing with any kind of like mental health stuff. And even just this like stepping into this portal of this next phase of our lives, right? And seeing what that looks like and our connection to one another. So all of this is so exciting for me. I hope it's also as exciting for you. And just thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.